Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Northern Michigan Tennis Association podcast. I'm George Lowe here with Dan Hawkins, and we got to talk to Eddie B today, Coach Ed Bernard, the head coach of the Traverse City West High School boys tennis team. Got a lot of great info about his background playing as a tennis player coming up, and also his coaching experience and playing experience, and about what he feels are important life lessons besides just tennis when he coaches. So we had a great conversation, so we hope you enjoy it. So yeah, Ed, can you just start at the beginning? Tell me about your tennis background, like where you first remember playing tennis, or how you got introduced to the game, and then up until now, how it's been a part of your life and how it's been part of what you do, in your life.
Well, I'm going to actually share kind of a crazy story, George, that I don't think you know about.
Okay.
I actually was a very dedicated baseball player, and grew up inner city Chicago. And the high school that I went to, Bowen High School, was a school of about 4,000 kids, and we won the city championship the year before I went into high school, and our whole infield returned. So when I went out for tryouts for the baseball team, I got cut on the last cut, and I was devastated because I was a pretty good player. At least I thought I was. But he had the whole infield coming back, and the coach actually called my dad and said, "Tell your son not to worry about it. He'll make the team next year."
Okay.
So a couple weeks later, they had tryouts for a tennis team, and I went out for the tennis team. My dad comes home from work, and I said, "Hey, Dad, guess what? I made the tennis team." He says, "I didn't know you played tennis." And I said, "Oh, well, I didn't, but I went out for the team and I made the team." So I played one doubles my first year, and
Wow.
then the second year came, and my dad expected me to go out for the baseball team again, and I said, I got a feeling that I'm gonna be more successful in tennis than I am in baseball. I just have that feeling. My dad said, "Hey, I support whatever you want to do, so go for it." So I played tennis, and I played one singles my second year, third year, fourth year, won the Chicago City Championship as a senior, and went on to play in states, and got beat in the second round, but we won't go. But still, by a very, very strong player. And I was ranked sixth in the state that year, and went on to play a year of. I had a full ride to University of Oklahoma. Went to school there, and my coach and I had some major disagreements. And I played for early in the season, traveled with the team, and then didn't travel with the team after that. And so I only was there for a year, but that wasn't the end of my college career, which I think you know that part of the story, George.
Yeah.
I went back to school as a 49-year-old. I played for KVCC, Kalamazoo Valley Community College, as the oldest college tennis player in the United States. And I had played in a lot of regional tournaments. I even played in some national tournaments before that. But as an adult, I really got into it, and played on a 5-0 travel team for a long time in Kalamazoo at West Hills, and then played on this college team because I had qualified for the Jewish Olympics over in Israel in 2001. So I played for Daryl Davies, Coach Daryl Davies, who I know you know, George, and had a great season with him, and was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and so from January to May, I basically told everyone in my company I was going to be a full-time student and go back to school, and because I had a year of eligibility left, and they all thought I was nuts, but that's okay. They worked for me. So I played for 5 months. We made the nationals that year down in Tyler, Texas. Went all the way to the quarterfinals. I was third singles on the team, and second doubles, and played a young man from the Nigerian Davis Cup team in my quarterfinals, and I lost to him. But anyhow, the the tournament over in Israel got there was bombings in 2001, so I ended up not taking my family there, and but I did end up playing in the Pan Am Games in 2003, and then I subsequently went to the Maccabiah Games, the Jewish Olympics in Israel. I had to qualify again in 2009, and I played. I played there, so I was fairly successful there, and turned out to be probably the best tournament I had ever played in, and played singles in my age bracket and won a gold medal. So I'm very proud of that.
Wow.
So that's kind of my tennis history. I've coached a lot of young men and women over my career, mostly individuals, high school players, college player. Even had a young lady who went pro, who I think you might know, George, Katie Schlickerbeer. You know Katie?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I know the name. I don't think I ever met Katie, but she's she was a Kalamazoo area player that was that went
Yep.
pro.
She went pro. She played number one at Stanford. She's a lovely young lady, and I coached her in her early teens. And then I turned her over to someone else because she got to be a little too good for me. So I taught her everything I knew, and she needed to move on from me. But that's kind of I've played a lot of tennis. I've been coaching up in Traverse City now for 7 years, and really enjoy what I do, and really enjoy hanging with the boys.
Yeah, that's really Ed. That's I didn't know a whole lot. I didn't know a lot of that information. So thanks for sharing that with us. But I wanted to back up a little bit because at the beginning you said you got cut from the baseball team and then went out for the high school team in high school. Does that scenario, do you think that scenario plays out much these days in high school tennis?
Well, I mean, I always say, since over at TC West, we have tons of boys going out for the soccer team, and soccer is a cut sport, and our sport is not a cut sport. That I always encourage all boys to come out for the tennis team, because if you're athletic, I can usually turn you into a tennis player.
Yeah.
And I think it does happen at times. We do see some transfer of boys. I lost a few boys this year that were on my team last year, but then again, I gained a few boys this year that I didn't have last year. So I think there is movement, George, to answer your question.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess me being in the private tennis industry, clubs and stuff, you don't think of that happening a lot, but it does happen. And tennis coaches can kind of be on the lookout for those kids, like kind of how you were, athletic and can learn a sport. I mean, was that the first time you'd played tennis when you tried out?
It was the first time I played tennis when I tried out. Yes, even
I
though I
mean,
lived across the street from a Chicago City park that had tennis courts, I was more interested in baseball and basketball. I was a pretty good basketball player in my day as well, and really didn't play tennis. And you know, by my junior year of high school, Wilson ended up sponsoring me. I got I was the first one in the state of Illinois to play with the T2000. I got it even before Jimmy Connors did, and Jimmy lived also in Illinois. He was down in Southern Illinois, but I got it about 6 months before he got it. When I brought the racket and tennis bags home, my dad looked at me and said, "Where did you get all that stuff?" He was amazed because they gave me four rackets and a bag and all kinds of clothing and shoes and everything. And he was amazed that all of a sudden I'm starting to get that stuff as a junior in high school.
wow. And so when you made the team, how? Because and then you said you won the or the city championships as a senior. You were the number one player, right?
I was.
And so so those 4 years, how do you take us through kind of your maybe training or how you were able to get so good in I mean, not a short amount of time, but considerably short amount of time when you're talking about going from zero to city champion in 4 years. I don't know a whole lot of people that take that giant leap the way you did. Take us through kind of how you evolved as a tennis player through those 4 years.
Well, first of all, let's make sure to understand that Chicago City tennis is not like the suburb tennis.
Okay.
Chicago City tennis is there's some good quality players, no question about it, but it's not quite to the level that the suburban schools have, and that's how come I was only ranked sixth in the state when I went to the state tournament. However, in indoor clubs, indoor courts were really not available to me because my parents were not very wealthy, and lessons were not available. I concentrated on watching tennis on television when it was televised, which it wasn't very much. I watched Rod Laver and Arthur Ashe and all those guys, Stan Smith, and those guys back in the day, and tried to emulate their strokes and their movements as best I could. As I said, I lived across the street from the city park, and once I got into tennis, I was on those courts nonstop. I mean, on a weekend day, in the summer, 8-10 hours a day would not be abnormal. If I didn't have anyone to play, I'd have a bucket of balls, and I'd have my dog used to fetch the balls for me if I was practicing my serve. They came back a little wet every now and then, but it didn't really matter that much. But I was on the courts, I mean, literally all day long. And I had my window in my bedroom. I could see who was on the tennis courts with my Hopalong Cassidy binoculars. So, which I still have, by the way. But I could see who was on the courts, and if there was someone out there interesting, I was there. I mean, I played nonstop for 3 years and really got a lot better very quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, 8 to 10 hours a day on the weekend, that makes sense. And it was mostly playing sets, right? It wasn't like you had a coach and you were working on some aspect of a technical piece of your forehand or anything. It was playing matches, right? Is that
A lot
fair?
of playing, mostly playing matches. My coach, my high school coach, was a biology teacher, and he was a really nice guy, but didn't know a lot about the technical aspects of the game. He, definitely promoted the sport and wanted us to work really hard. And it was and just training, making sure I was fit and ready to go and strong, and doing I used to probably do 100 push-ups every day, and chin-ups and all the physical activities to make sure I was in good shape on the court.
Hmm. Yeah, and so all the match plays. Now, when you was there like a were there summer tournaments outside of high school, or was high school the main form of competition other than like practice matches at the park?
No, I played in a lot of summer tournaments. I would go up on the north side and play in Highland Park and Winnetka and Skokie and all, where all the better players were during the summers. I think it's real important that you play more than just in your direct surroundings. You have to really push yourself to play in those. I had trouble getting right. Both my mother and father worked, so it was really difficult to getting rides. But
Yeah.
a couple of the other guys were on the team, also played in tournaments, and we would go as a group out there. And sometimes we even took buses and trains to get to tournaments. It was real important. I got
Right.
invited. I got invited to the nationals as a senior, and I didn't play in the nationals, which I'm sorry to say, because I just couldn't afford to come up to Kalamazoo at the time. But it was it was it, I just didn't have the luxury of having funding at that point in my life, and luckily I got college scholarship and was able to really continue my play.
Yeah, and so I mean, it just the story. It seems like we hear a lot of things in the tennis world of like my parents can't afford, and I don't have transportation. I can't get. It seems like you were in the same boat, but somehow you found a way to make it work and became a really good player with really limited resources. Do you think there's always talk about, oh, well, when you give people more resources, it doesn't it's really not helping them. Maybe it's hurting their drive to play it. Like you really had to want to play in order to get to those tournaments, in order to practice 8 to 10 hours every weekend, playing matches and stuff. Do you think the resources that we give people actually hurt them now, or I guess you really just you were totally invested and found ways to go play. I just don't see that quite as much these days. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see it much either. Although, it seems like most of the kids that are excelling at the game and even that show up at the Nationals, and I've been at the Nationals, I was on the board of the Nationals for many years. And, most of the kids that show up there have a silver spoon in their mouth. I mean, they're given the opportunity. They're in a very lavish lifestyle. Let's face it, tennis is a richer man's sport, just like golf is. And if you don't have the money to get the lessons and belong to a club, it's definitely a negative. I played a lot of my indoor tennis over the winter at University of Chicago. They had a dirt court, and just behind the baseline was the track. So you had to watch for the guys that were running track as you were standing on the baseline. So I mean, it wasn't ideal, but it worked, and good enough to at least we used to play. We tried playing three nights a week there during the school season just to keep our strokes going, so that we wouldn't lose momentum going into the next spring and summer.
And so, and the wintertime tennis at University of Chicago, was there a fee for that, or was it just show up and play?
No, there was a fee. It was a small fee, though. I
Okay.
don't remember. I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty
Yeah.
darn cheap. And again, understand that just at the baseline was lane one of the
Yeah.
track course. So I mean, you got people running behind you. It wasn't ideal, but
Yeah.
it worked. I mean, it worked.
Right. Right. Wow. I mean, that's just incredible. That I always admire people that have like just a passion or maybe even an obsession for it. I feel like those are the people that can get really good, and like I said, kind of in a short time, like 4 years. And then talk a little bit about after you got a scholarship to play. I assume to play tennis in college.
Yeah, I got a scholarship to play tennis, and understand I was only at the time I was only 5'6". I was pretty short, but I was really quick, really fast and quick and agile. And my attitude was, if I can reach it, it's coming back to you.
Yeah.
So I went down to college, and it was, I'm University of Oklahoma. I grew up inner city Chicago. It was a total change
Sure.
of culture. And actually, my two doors down from me in the jock dorm was the Heisman Trophy winner that year of the football team. And the football team, the wrestling team, and the tennis team all lived in the same dormitory, because those were the three premier sports at the university. Basketball had not made its way up the ladder as of yet. And but I'm in the shower room with these guys, these monster guys, these 6'5", 300-pound guys in college, and here I'm 5'6", maybe 155 pounds. Excuse me. And it was nerve wracking, but I grew a lot. Especially, I came home for Thanksgiving, and my parents looked at me, and like I grew like 3 inches, I think, in 3 months. It was crazy. I peaked out at about 5'10" and a half, but I was 5'6" when I went into college. So that just shows you how much I grew that first year.
Wow.
Uh, so anyhow, my wife is yelling at me. Okay. um, so it was just a culture shock. I had a run in with my coach. Um, he didn't realize I was Jewish, and I didn't realize he was anti-Semitic. So we had a tough time after he found out I was Jewish. After about the first four matches of the season, and I ended up not playing for the university ever again.
Sure, sure. So I mean that's just such a great story of like being like getting the chance to play tennis in high school, and then you flipped it into a college scholarship. I mean, I think that's a lot of dreams of kids, but and it's very possible. It's just that there's a lot of time and dedication that has to be put in, which you did. I just think that's an incredible story worth sharing. That it's totally possible and kids can do this. Um, Jumping kind of ahead, can you talk a little bit about how you got into, coaching, maybe your students, kind of the individuals at first, and then kind of how that led to now coaching a high school team?
Yeah, actually, it kind of happened. It just kind of happened. I had played a lot, and I raised a family, and I wasn't interested in. I was concentrating on my business and raising a family, and then in 1985, I blew my knee out skiing out in Idaho, and I was doing some rehab work at physical therapy, and I ran into this young man who was a tennis player, and he really was aspiring to get better. And I said, well, I can, if you really want to do it and you're really willing to work, I can take you to the next level. So his name, and you may even know him. His name is Jeff Clements, and Jeff, very nice young man, and he and I definitely connected, and we ended up hitting at least 2-3 times a week every week, and I would put him through some real tough sessions, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed hitting with him, I think, as much as he enjoyed hitting with me, but it was really the training aspect and the really seeing him improve, and also teaching him life lessons, which is a very important part of tennis, and something that I definitely concentrate on even as I'm coaching my high school boys today. But that really kind of got me started coaching. And once he went away to college, then I kind of looked for another individual, and I coached a young lady by the name of Kristen Dehan, and she ended up playing number one at Western, and she was a very nice player, but she had this problem that she every time she made a mistake, she would take her racket and smack her shoe. And I said, so I fixed that. I said, we can't be smacking our shoes every time we miss a point. So you have to take the emotion out of it, take the negative emotion out. If you want to be positive emotion, that's great, but don't be smacking your shoe. So I coached her for a while and got her full scholarship at Western. And then I had another young man from Benton Harbor who came over and trained with me, Jeremy Friedman, who ended up playing at the University of Michigan. So I've had just a number of kids that I've coached individually and really enjoyed it. And the coach over at Madawan High School asked me, I'm not sure, Matt, do you know Matt Bovin?
Yeah.
George? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I figured you'd know him. So he asked me if I would assist him in his girls and his boys team. So I ended up doing that for a few years and really enjoyed it. And I had taught Matt, he lived in our neighborhood, and we had the only tennis court at the house. So I taught Matt how to play tennis when he was 6 years old. So now I'm assisting him coaching. So I really enjoyed doing that. So, and I really didn't want to be a high school coach at that point, because my wife and I had a scholarship program, a sportsmanship scholarship program in Kalamazoo for all the Kalamazoo area high schools. So I couldn't have it conflict with that. So I really didn't become a high school coach until I moved up here to Traverse City 7 years ago.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You said at the very beginning, you said, part of your coaching was not only teaching tennis lessons, but also life lessons. Talk a little bit about what life lessons you feel like you're able to reach kids with through tennis.
Well, I think their activity on the tennis court is obviously first and foremost. I mean, I don't allow any shenanigans on the court. I think you've seen, my guys play enough and know that, they don't take the ball and hit it against the screen. They don't hit the net with their racket. They don't even hit the racket the ground with their racket. They know that I know what they're doing when they do that, and they can't get away with it. Um, uh, I think it's real important that it's a gentleman's sport, and I think it's real important that you play it properly. You on the changeover, you hand over the tennis balls properly to your opponent. You don't just throw them by the back screen. You either put them right by the service line, or you actually hand them to your opponent. Little things like that make all the difference in the world. It turns you into a good person instead of someone who just doesn't care. I teach them a lot of other things. We travel a lot on our high school team, and making sure that they understand life lessons that maybe they're not taught at home is pretty important. I teach them. I know this is going to sound kind of strange, but I teach especially the younger ones how to pump gas. When I'm driving a van load of six guys, I always say, all right, who's the youngest at the start of the season? All right, who's the youngest in the van? I am, coach. I said, okay, come on, we're pumping gas. So I teach them, and it's amazing to me how many of them don't know how to pump gas at 14 years old. And I remember my dad teaching me like when I was 8 or 10, but these boys don't know how to pump gas. So I teach them how to pump gas. I teach them the proper manners, and when we go out to eat, how to tip properly in the hotels, how to handle themselves in the hotels. Because I think we had 7 overnights this year. Just all of those little things that, besides on the tennis court, they have to learn, the proper way to handle themselves and the proper way to be a human being, in my eyes.
Yeah, that's really cool. I don't know. I don't know that maybe they do, but tennis pros at clubs necessarily operate in the same way. Mostly about either the X's and the O's or the swings and the movement. So I think that's really cool and a part of coaching that needs to be around. We need to have that as part of coaching. What else? I mean, are there other things that maybe are unique to your style, and where did you learn those kind of coaching techniques, or how do you reach the kids and help them the most? I mean, what do you think? How are you helping the kids the most through your coaching? Like, what have you seen be the biggest impact, I guess?
Well, I think you always have to look at what other people do and pick out their qualities. Daryl Davies, for example, my coach at KVCC, was the most patient guy I think I've ever into in my life. The guy was unbelievable. His patience was incredible. How he would put up with things. He let some things slide, but at the same time, he got a lot out of his guys because they really did respect him. And that's all I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to respect me, them to respect my time. They know that when I say we start practice at 3:15 on the court, that doesn't mean 3:16. And if you're there at 3:16 and you haven't texted me telling me that you're running late because you have something going on at school or because you ran out of gas or something, you're going to be late. And if you haven't texted me, that means you're just going to run further than if you did text me. So, I mean, there's little things like that. And it's amazing. My boys this year, I had probably the best group I've ever had this year. I can't tell you, I don't think there was more than a handful of times that my boys ran late. this year, and I'm talking 1 or 2 minutes, not 10 or 15 minutes. And they always text me. It's you have to teach them the right way to handle themselves in life. And Daryl was a really good mentor as far as that went. My high school coach, Hal Cohn, was also very good at doing certain things. I think, and my father was a huge influence on what I've done in my life. So I would have to say those three guys. Obviously taking my dad right up to the top of the list.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't really talk a lot about kind of your parents' support of your tennis career, but tell us a little bit about like how were your parents involved or not involved? And it sounded like they were very supportive of you wanting to play high school tennis, but yeah, talk a little bit about your folks.
Well, they both worked kind of nonstop just to keep food on the table in our house. My mother played tennis as a high schooler. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting in my office right now looking at her picture and her tennis racket on my wall, her old wooden racket, which is a beauty. And but my dad didn't understand tennis whatsoever. Like I said earlier, he was shocked when I when I told him I was playing tennis, and he came out for very few matches just because he wasn't available after school, and didn't even see me win the Chicago City Championship, which was a shame. But he did come to some of my tournament matches on the weekends, and some of my tournaments as an adult. He used to come out. I played in quite a number of tournaments around the Chicago area, the clay court championships out in Oak Park, and some of the other tournaments around Chicago. And he would come out and watch me play. And he didn't understand how I got so good at tennis. He still considered me a baseball player.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Did your dad play baseball, Ed? Did you say that already?
Yeah, my dad played baseball, and he was pretty athletic guy. He was a Golden Gloves boxer, and he was an avid baseball player and an avid baseball fan. And I remember going to White Sox Park, when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, and we would go quite often, sit out in the cheap bleacher seats, but it was great. Wow. I loved it.
Wow.
That's cool. Ed, we talk in these interviews, we kind of talk about what the future looks like in your tennis program. So Dan is also a tennis coach, by the way. Ed, Dan coaches tennis in Gaylord, where there's not a formal high school program, but he's building it and trying to get it there. What have you seen be the biggest factors in building a high school program and maintaining a high school program? And how do you get kids interested in tennis? And then also, where do you see the future of tennis for West's boys program going? What do you see?
Well, that's a good question, George. And actually, just this morning, I got an email from the woman who heads up our middle school program over at TC West, and she was looking for advice on winter, for the boys who want to play during the winter. Of course, I said the resort and the Y, and the most important thing is to keep it available to them and make sure that they're playing as much as possible at a young age. The grammar school and middle school ages are the times to get these kids interested in tennis. I didn't start until I was a freshman in high school, but that doesn't mean that everyone else can do the same thing. If we can get these kids interested at 10, 12 years old and really starting to hone their skills before they get into high school, it's going to make all the difference in the world. I volunteer coach out at the middle school when I come back from the Keys in late April and all through the month of May, just trying to get kids interested. And I had 2 freshmen on my team this year that I coached from over at the middle school. So it really benefited. I think it benefited them and it benefited me. I already knew who they were and what their what their solid points were. We do what's called an open hit on Sundays at our high school. We're not able to coach during that time, except for 4 boys at a time. But we just make an open hit and just make a time that all the boys, and we invite the girls team also to join us. And quite a few of the girls came out and joined us this year. I think just making the sport available to these kids is the most important thing. If you don't, those courts are going to just remain empty. And you just have to keep planning and keep putting it in front of them and making sure that you provide fun and enjoyment for them so that they want to go out and get better.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things, that the elementary age or grammar school age programs, the middle school programs are all an important piece of like introducing tennis to kids at a young age, getting them interested. And encouraging them to practice outside of maybe the program, so that by the time they get to high school, they're maybe a little bit more well-versed, or they're not starting from scratch. Those types of things take time, and they take, volunteers and other coaches. How do we encourage more people to take those roles, or to step up into those roles?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, quite honestly, what I do is I also encourage my boys, even when I'm not there in April, the boys on my team, to go over and volunteer a couple days a week over at the middle school. And I've always had a group of them, a few of them that do that. But I think it comes from the coach itself. It's gotta, it's gotta come from the coach. It's gotta, if they want to develop their program, you don't develop it and hope that everything's going to be okay with incoming freshmen. You have to develop it from the grammar school and middle school ages, because that's where you're really going to get your talent. That's where you're going to get the interest. We start our tryouts this year. Our tryouts were August 7th. Well, it's way before school starts. So we really need to get that middle school interested in what we're doing the season before, so those graduating kids, those kids that are entering high school, have to be engaged with the program. And I try to get them out for those Sunday hits as much as possible, but that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Do you see what characteristics do you see of kids that do get really interested and stick with it, and how do you create more players that want to practice on their own? They're looking out at the courts to see if anybody's out there to play, just spending the time. What are the characteristics, or what have you seen encourage kids to spend that time practicing and working on tennis?
Well, if the natural answer to that question would be, athletic, being an athlete. But I don't think that's the bottom line, because we've got some boys on our JV team that aren't the most athletic, but they're still out there performing, keeping them doing something other than being in front of their computer screens and doing, in the house type stuff. I think it's up to the parents to encourage their son and daughters to get out of the house and find some sport. It doesn't matter what sport it is, whether it's cross country running, soccer, football, whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference. But it's up to each parent to really encourage them into some activity other than, like I said, being on a computer and doing the games that everyone a lot of kids get roped into. And they don't have to be athletic. I mean, it's obviously, as a coach, we like the more athletic kids, but it's we're happy to work with anyone, and our sport is a no-cut sport, so we work with each and every one of them and make sure that they get our time, whether they are good players or whether they're still learning how to play.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just to encourage parents to encourage activity, no matter what it is. I mean, even if you had you were involved in baseball, but had you not been involved in baseball or something active, maybe you wouldn't have found tennis. So there's always those situations where, kids spend a lot of their time in a different sport, but then end up finding tennis and they can become very successful.
Yeah.
So just getting the kids active, it seems like. Is there anything that you've found that leads kids to tennis in particular, or is it just just kids that want to get out and be active?
Well, I know from our JV team guys, they want to travel. They want to get out
Okay.
and travel with the team. And one of the things that we do to make them want to be on varsity, we have tennis bags, really nice tennis bags that the varsity guys use. We have I don't know if you've been out to our course, but we put up pictures, nice pictures of our 1, 2, 3, 4 singles, 1, 2, 3, 4 doubles teams, and they're the year that they're graduating up on the fence. And I got to tell you that that really pushes our JV guys to want to be varsity, to want to be on the varsity team. And quite honestly, we've got some varsity guys that may be on the edge this year, and I told them they got to push to keep their pictures up there for next year. So I think that's a real important thing. You gotta push kids a little bit, and not stress them out too much. But at the same time, if you want them to be the athlete that they can make themselves into, a little push is certainly warranted. I had an older brother, and my older brother was not what I would call a gifted athlete, and I think that in itself pushed me, just because he could beat me up all the time, but just the fact that I was a better athlete pushed me into becoming a better athlete. And I think sometimes you have to look for situations like that, and unique situations that will come up in within families, and you can make a mediocre player a good player, and a good player an excellent player if you coach them properly.
Yeah. Well, I know motivation is a big thing. I know if my picture was up there and it was in danger of coming down, I'd probably work that extra just to keep it up there.
That's right. That's right.
Good part.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Ed, we're kind of coming to the beginning of the end. I do have one question that we're kind of asking everybody that we're interviewing is like, if you could think of like the resources available to yourself and your tennis program now, like the high school team, what if there's anything, what could the USTA or the Northern Michigan Tennis Association, or what would help you and the team continue to get players to play, continue to players to train, improve the quality of play of your team? What are the things that high school coaches need, and that they don't have? Like what could and could the USTA be a support for that?
Well, obviously, we're always looking for whatever support we can get. However, I don't know that the USTA is going to. I mean, running tournaments, I think is great. Making them available and open to all players, making sure that the communication is open for everyone. Everyone, including myself, is not on Facebook. I think it's real important that we don't think that everyone is on Facebook, and sometimes I get that idea. I am on Instagram, but at the same time, a lot of other coaches aren't on Instagram or Facebook. So I think just the aspect of getting, having them reach out to coaches, and they can find out coaches' information through the websites, and getting that information right to the coaches so that we know when the tournaments are, we know when any other activities are, we know exactly what's going on within the tennis community, so that we can inspire our young athletes to participate to the max.
Yeah. You're looking for what are the resources, kind of like how you're describing for the middle school program. What are the opportunities in the off seasons where kids can continue to play?
Exactly. I mean, perfect example is I found out about you wanting to have this podcast with me through my wife, who is on Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook.
Yeah.
So she said, you got to call George. And I did. But and I'm a little old fashioned. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I deal with it.
Sure.
But it's just the way it is, and I think the USTA has to understand that as well. Communication is key, and I think doing a lot of direct emailing or text messaging is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, what we've seen on our end until real recently is phone calls and text work, and that's about it. Everybody gets a million emails a day. So it's, the phone call, the text, those things tend to, communication wise, work, but the email is just, and to that point, Facebook and all that stuff, it's nice extras, but the direct connect is really nice to have.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Ed, is there anything else that you'd like to get out there? We're recording these, and then we're going to post them later. We'll definitely include, send you the link directly to this audio. But anything else you want folks to know that may listen to this? And then is there anything that you would like folks listening to this to do, or any sort of advice for them?
I don't think I have any advice, George. I think, tennis is a great sport. I plan on playing it the rest of my life, even though I also play a lot of pickleball and teach pickleball. Tennis, I still consider myself a tennis player that plays pickleball, and probably always will be. But, I'm kind of surprised at one thing, George. You keep calling me Ed, not Eddie B, which
Eddie B, sorry.
As you know, is what all the boys call me, so I just think keep it fun, keep it lively, keep it active, and just have a good time with it, because that's really what we're talking about. It's a sport, but it can be a main part of your life. It has been a main part of my life, and it will be. And as you know, my son plays, and my granddaughter and grandson plays, and they're going to be avid tennis players as well.
Well, that's excellent. And Eddie B, I apologize, and maybe it's just this whole thing seems kind of formal to me. But definitely, you are Eddie B. We love you, and thank you for making the time for this. We'd love to do follow-ups too and catch up with you down the road. So if you're open to that, we'd love to keep that door open. Dan, did you want to add anything, or did you have any questions for Eddie B?
Well, Eddie B lit up a few questions, but other than that, no, I feel like I've learned a lot. I've been just privileged to sit here and listen and learn from all your experiences, Eddie. I think I want to do about 10 more podcasts, deep dives into some of your stories that you just kind of put out there, because they all sound quite fascinating. But maybe we'll just have to have a conversation another time about that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Nice talking to both of you today.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie B. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, George. Bye-bye. Bye.